Hello YouTube, welcome to my first video. Today I'd like to talk about morality a little and where it comes from and how we know that it comes from where I'm about to say. And also what to make of it. So first of all, what is morality? Here I've got a definition from Wikipedia. They say morality is the differentiation of intentions, decisions, and actions between those that are distinguished as proper and those that are improper. To say a concept like this exists, first of all, you would have to ground it, and I would ground morality within you. Morality must have a vessel to hold it. You can think of it like if a tree falls in the forest, does it still make a sound? Yes, it does make a sound, because sound is just moving air. So that'll happen whether or not there is a vessel, you, to hear it. Morality, however, if there are no humans around to hold morality, cannot exist. So morality exists within you. Morality is real because you are real. This means that morality cannot come from God or things like reason through argumentation. You may perhaps learn some proper or improper action through someone's religious teaching or through someone's argumentation, but you are still required to hold it and to act it. So it comes from you. Now, of course, you can contest anything that you hear someone say, like you should act this way or that way. You can contest this. And this can all come from your own personality type. And guys like Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Haidt have done good research to show that Big Five or whatever personality type correlates better with political preference, which we can use as a proxy for someone's sense of morality, for social policy within a nation. We can use that as a proxy for morality. There is also a hereditary component to personality. So there's been studies done on fraternal and identical twins. And in these studies, from what I'm reading, they've collected data from twins who have been in the same household, who have been separated, so they've grown up in different environments. The correlation still appears to be there. It can be divided up in another way, which is a kind of a class or subculture-based trend within any sort of civilization. So it doesn't matter whether you are in say London or Sydney or Beijing or Cairo. There will always be some kind of class of ruling elites. There'll be a working class type. There'll be arty type people. There'll be some kind of priestly class, whether they're religious or these days they could be scientists, social scientists. People in each of these classes very often, and you notice this in places like high school, university, whatever. People from within these classes and subcultures, they will find a partner from the same subculture. Very often these people, they're just like their parents as well. And so in some way there is a kind of self-selecting, there is kind of a soft caste system. It's not necessarily a legal thing. It might be, depending on what country you're in. But generally people want to be partnering up with people similar to them, whether they look alike, whether they share the same values. That's the biggest one probably. And what's also quite funny is that there's often a sort of stereotypical physiognomy that's associated with it. So you could stereotype the cafe hipster as someone who's perhaps scrawny, might have a weak chin and a big nose, like quite a bit of a Poindexter, very academic, very studious, not very in touch with like the physical world, not in touch with their own body. You see this in modern movies today, like characters will play like stereotypes of people of different classes, and if they didn't go upon those stereotypes, then people wouldn't believe it. It wouldn't match reality so much. So of course, physiognomy is without a doubt hereditary. Like you look like your parents, right? You're probably going to end up in the same class as your parents with very similar interests, very similar behavioral patterns, very similar virtues and vices. So that's where morality comes from, without like putting forth any kind of what is it? Do this because this is moral. This is just simply an observation of people's own preferences, how they behave, etc. So what I'm putting forth it pokes some holes in some of the more popular theories of morality and ethics throughout history, and I'm going to go through a few of them. So I'm reading from Wikipedia here, virtue ethics from Socrates. Socrates says, a person must be self-aware of the very fact and its context are relevant to his existence if he wishes to attain self-knowledge. He posits that people will naturally do what is good if they know what is right. Evil or bad actions are the results of ignorance. If a criminal was truly aware of the intellectual and spiritual consequences of his or her actions, he or she would neither commit nor even consider committing those actions. Well, that's, I'm sure, for the most part true. If someone knows that something is good or bad, very often, most of the time, they will, for the sake of preserving their like reputation or something, or because there is like a fear of violence if they do wrong, they will act in that good or bad way. But sometimes causing trouble is fun, even if it's going to like ostracize you a little bit. And so that's not exactly true, but yeah, it is what it is. And the will to cause trouble is a bit of a personality type. You get mischievous people. I'm sure we all had like one friend growing up who was like, great with banter, would say cheeky things, and then you go to his house and meet their dad, and like their dad is just like this, crude talking, like a banter king, and he'll, even though like you're younger, he'll really rip into you, but it will be somewhat enjoyable. Sometimes, maybe it's a little bit unwelcome. Sometimes maybe he goes too far, and maybe not everyone likes the guy because of that. And so this sort of affects his social standing. There's some people in which there's a kind of character in which like glorifies this kind of like harsh or maybe even like crass banter, and another which kind of finds that distasteful and unwelcome. There are some philosophers who will be like moral nihilists. They'll say you cannot justify any kind of good or bad, and so all moral claims are false. All you really need for one thing to be like good or bad morally is two people to agree on it, and then boom, you've got morality. It only exists for these two people, which counts. It means it does exist, but for these two people. However, nothing's going to be universal. Basically, there's 7 billion people on the planet. You're always going to find one person who disagrees on A, B, C to Z thing. In that sense, moral knowledge is real, and it's likely going to come from two people who are very similar. Let's say, like a brother and sister, a father and son. They're both going to agree on things. So they're both going to have shared moral knowledge. this pokes a little bit of a hole in the idea that morality can come through reason. Well, it can a bit. Someone can make a rational argument which appeals to people's emotions, for example. It's not the fact that you order words in a certain way and that people rationalize, X or Y thing to be good or bad. People have, biases that come before that, based on their personality type, which will cause them to think X or Y thing is good. An ethical system that these ideas is perhaps a little bit more compatible with, I believe, is deontology, and Kant's deontology, although not entirely compatible. So here's a quote from Kant, which is kind of like describes deontology in a nutshell. Nothing in the world, indeed nothing beyond the world, can possibly be conceived which could be called good without qualification except a good will. So that's a bullshit sentence. That's really hard to understand. But I'll kind of paraphrase it. Something is good because you will it so, because you have, intentions that are good. You show goodwill towards someone, and that is agreed on between you and the other person. So what does all this mean for moral progress? Because I think, you and I, we've both got this notion that we would like, some kind of progress in the world. We would like the world to be better, in a nutshell. We would like more social cohesion. We would like not to be teaching people all the rules all the time. So how do you get actual moral progress? Well, for people to be agreeing on things more, they ought to, the best way I can think of would be that they be more genetically similar to one another. So I'm likely going to get along more with my family than I would with you, whoever you are. And vice versa, you would get along more with your family. I would get along with people who are, say, from the same town as me, who are genetically like pretty similar to me, and from the same class. Now, this sameness taken to its extreme would be like let's say a global extreme would be everyone is genetically very, very similar to one another, and everyone is from the same class. That would be like complete moral progress. And you get that idea from, funnily enough, like communism. So communism seeks to like abolish all class, right? And it's meant to be a global revolution. In a sense, is the height of moral progress by trying to eliminate class. Anyway, that's my rant on morality. Do subscribe if you liked my rant, and take it easy.